sit back and unwind. Fresh from the barbershop.
Welcome, everybody, to the second installment of our Global Sailor series. And today we have with us Dylan McGovern. For those of you who are new to our Global Sailor series, this is something that the ESS Sailing Club has decided to put on for a variety of reasons. My name is Athena. I'm the president of the Sailing Club, and when I joined, when I became president, I looked over the next couple of months, and what I saw were nothing but a series of cancellations of our sailing club's key events. We have a sailing trek, we had a regatta with other schools. One of our, it wasn't looking great, and I thought to myself, what is the sailing club here to do? It's here to bring people together, to use sailing to inspire us to go forward and to motivate us. Sailing has a lot to give us on and off the water. So with that in mind, I reached out to the network and brought in some really cool stories. The first one last week that we had was from Thomas Wagner, who told us a little bit about the history of the club, how he got it started, and his vision with that. Really gratefully to him, he's also brought in today a good friend of his. I'm going to have Thomas introduce Dylan because Thomas knows him well. But before I hand off to Thomas, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. We have quite a few people that are going to log in today. And in order to save some bandwidth and make sure that we don't have technical difficulties, I will ask you all to turn off your videos and your microphones, just to make sure that we can all see Dylan and hear him without any interruptions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I will be keeping an eye on them, and I will make sure that at the end of this, Dylan answers all of those questions. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thomas, are you with us today?
I am. Can you hear me? And can you see me?
Both. Affirmative.
Okay.
So I'm going to hand it over to you because I want you to introduce Dylan. I think you're the best person to do that.
Okay. I wouldn't worry about taking up people's time. I think we have plenty of it on our hands right now. So don't worry about that. Yeah, so thank you for having me. Like last week, it was like the highlight, obviously, of my week is getting to share that story. And when you asked me, who else could we bring on, the first person that came to mind was this individual. His name is Dylan. I met him in Croatia, actually, like off the coast of Hvar. He was sailing his yacht, I had mine, and we tied up alongside one another. And he's this very special character. I mean, he just like has this great energy that you gravitate towards. He's always positive, and he has this unique outlook on life, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I was lucky enough to one night, I think it was like 1 a.m., and we were sitting on his yacht, and he actually told me the story of when he was out at sea and his boat sank and how he thought he was going to die. The story was so powerful. I can honestly tell you, I don't really remember the details and how it went, but I didn't forget how I felt afterwards when he got done sharing that with me. And I always kind of look back and always, like would love to hear it again. So Dylan, like I was wondering if maybe you could take this opportunity to actually share it with the group because you went through a very traumatizing experience and something that's very similar to what's going on right now with the quarantine. So I couldn't think of anything better than to actually sit back and selfishly get to listen to his story and not hear myself talk anymore. So thank you for that. And Athena, I'll let you have it now.
Absolutely. So that's how we brought Dylan into this. Thank you, Thomas, for suggesting him. Dylan, where are you calling us from today? I
Yes,
assume it's
hi
on
there,
land.
Athena. How are you doing? Currently in South Africa, and I'm at home at my parents' house. I'm in quarantine. In South Africa, we unfortunately, just exactly like everyone else in the world, is under lockdown. And yeah, we've been at home now for quite some time. And unfortunately, you know, there's some things that have to be done at the moment in terms of being safe and staying at home. And, you know, we're living that right now, and I think it's got some relation to a few emotions that I felt not so long ago that I'd love to share with everyone today. So yeah, basically a little bit about me. My name's Dylan McGovern. I'm from South Africa. I'm from a small town called Port Shepstone. Um, I grew up racing dirt bikes, and I was involved in motorsport, actually racing many South African championships growing up. And my mechanic went to work in Florida on super yachts. And when he came back in 2015, I was, you know, just a normal schoolboy finishing my curriculum at the moment. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And he mentioned to my father that, you know, yachting and sailing is quite a good niche if I was keen on getting involved and going overseas and making some money. You know, in South Africa, you know, there's not that many opportunities as there would be in another country. Unfortunately, South Africa is a third world country, and there are a few problems in the country. But with that in mind and with that aside, it didn't stop me from pursuing my dream. It didn't stop me from going to the places and doing the things I wanted to do. And it all started in 2015. And the story is literally something that did happen to me. And there were individuals, three individuals that were involved as well. And not to forget about them, but they are wonderful individuals, and they were there with me through it all. And, you know, for us to still be alive today, I can only commend them. Basically started at sailing in Langebaan in 2015 and did my day skipper course, fell in love with sailing, really, really fell in love with sailing. I just wanted more of it. I wanted to pursue it all. I wanted to see how far I could go by devoting all my time and all my efforts into sailing. And in 2017, I finished my yacht master in Langebaan, South Africa. And basically, your RWA Yacht Master certificate is your MBA degree in business school, right? This qualification allows one to sail anywhere in the world, pleasure, or work for money as a professional skipper. And that's where I've met Thomas Wagner. And that's how I'm here today, is because I went and worked in Europe for 2 seasons as a skipper. You know, I really grew a lot as a person, not only from what I was accomplishing at the age of 20 years old, but also because of what I'd been through. And what I'd been through wasn't necessarily what anyone should ask for, or, you know, normally livelihoods are set out by going to school, getting a good education and following the route of life. But I beg to differ, and I tried my own routes. And, you know, I was sailing all over the place and going here and going there and getting false answers from everyone and trying to build my own path and network, because I didn't have a clue how to, and no one was helping me. And it was kind of my own idea to try and succeed in this world that no one really knew anything about, especially my parents and my family or my friends. They just thought it was a dream, you know. And looking back in the 5 years, you know, I've accomplished quite a lot. You know, just a little table here on the PowerPoints in terms of my development as a leader. In 2015, I started everything in terms of my yachting life, and I would only have the day skipper qualification. 5 years down the line, with quite a bit of experience, I have an instructor qualification now. So I've been doing a lot of offshore sailing.
Dylan, to get a little bit of an
Yes.
idea of exactly how experienced you are for those of us in the audience that don't have that much sailing experience. You currently have over 30,000 nautical miles under your belt. How long, how long would it take to sail 250 miles?
Well, for example, sailing is the art of going nowhere fast. Unfortunately, it's beautiful and it feels exhilarating, but you truly aren't going anywhere very fast. So, for example, 250 miles will take you an average of 2.5 days if you're doing 100 nautical miles a day. Basically, relationships of distance and speed on the ocean and on the water is referred to your average speed. So if you're doing 5 knots an hour, you should be doing 5 miles an hour as well. So it's completely up to the relationship between the speed of the vessel, the wind, and all the other factors. You can't just put your thumb on it and say this is how long it's going to take me, for example, driving a car. But yeah, roughly that amount of time, yeah.
So in 2017, you had just finished your Yachtmaster license. So you're quite knowledgeable at that point and you have a lot of miles, but you're not necessarily experienced, right?
Yeah, to summarize exactly what you just said now, I was a member of a yacht club in Durban, and the Commodore of the yacht club, who was also once a mentor of mine, told me, you're not a sailor just yet. And I kept on chasing and pursuing my mindset of what he thinks he would describe a sailor, or call someone a sailor. And I feel that with the experience that I've been through and what I've had, it's transformed me to become experienced as I am today at such a young age. I'm only 22 years old and I've done a lot of sailing. So, the future is onwards and upwards, and I'd love to inspire everyone. And in the next slide, I'm going to do exactly that. And, on the 16th of November, 2017 at 5:30, I woke up. We had just been on a passage on a boat by the name of Kind of Magic. We're sailing her from Cape Town, South Africa to the Seychelles, which is quite a far trip. It takes a while. I'd say it's about 2,200, 2,300 nautical miles as the crow flies. But obviously things happen and weather's never in your favor. And yeah, we encountered quite a few problems. We had some bad weather. At that stage, I was a deckhand, so I was just a crew member. I didn't even have any experience in terms of skipping a vessel or making calls as the call I'm about to announce. And yeah, I was just loving it. I was sailing, I was fishing, I was really just loving the whole fairy tale of delivering this vessel from Cape Town to the Seychelles. And waking up at 5:30 by the skipper asking me to raise sails. And we had raised sails because we had been motoring the previous evening because the wind was not in our favor. And I was a little bit irritated because I was tired, like we all were. It was 25 days at sea and we were all quite irritated with one another. And it's quite funny, a dirty pot or dirty spoon in the sink is all right, but with a person or 3 people that have been on a yacht for 25 days who start not washing their spoons or start not cleaning after themselves, or just basic hygiene and basic actions on a boat, it gets a little bit too much. And if I can compare that to the feeling of quarantine,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. I mean, I feel today is day 19 in lockdown in South Africa. And I feel like, I'm in a boat again. I can't go outside. I can't do the things I want to do. I can't see the friends I want to see. And yeah, went back downstairs after raising the sails, and I'd noticed there was some water on the floorboards. And
Yeah. But along with being stuck in a yacht for 25 days, you were also having mechanical problems, right? That's why you were on a motor?
Yeah. So we faced some, some problems with the boats and with the steering that we had on the boats. And it was a hydraulic steering system, and, it had faulted somehow and something had broke on the shaft, and we didn't have steering. So I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am today on boat maintenance and fixing solutions, for example, like what had happened at the time. So I learned a lot from the skipper. The skipper who was there took control. He was a good leader. He really led his crew solidly, and he really did show attention to detail in terms of emotions. The first week's always fun and games. The second week is awesome. And the third week, it really gets a bit challenging at times. So we fixed it and we all dealt with the situation, and we're already kind of in a bit of an emotional deficit with what had already happened. So we're almost in an emergency situation. So we're motoring towards Jean de Nova Island, which is on the western side of Madagascar. And yeah, we were in an emergency situation. We contacted a ship by the name of MT Massini, and we had mentioned to them that we needed diesel, and if they could supply us some diesel, that would be fabulous, so we could continue with our journey. And they agreed, and we had a discussion on the radio about it all. And they were soon to pass us the next day at about lunchtime. And we went to bed, and the following morning I got woken up to raise the sails. And I come back down the companionway from the cockpit, and I see some water on the floorboards, and I raised an alarm, but nothing too bad. I was just asking some questions and trying to find out why there was this water here. And everyone was very blasé about it. Everyone was like, it's just a little bit of water.
It's not unusual to have water in a boat, especially on long passages, right?
Exactly. I mean, boats do get water in them, and we have something called a bilge, which is at the bottom of the yacht. And that's where all this necessary and unnecessary water that, can get in either from the through-hole fittings or from the propeller shaft or anything like that, depending on the design or class of the yacht. So opening up the floorboards, expecting, just a little bit of water, just going to dry it up, it should be okay. I start seeing water like gushing in, and I know this isn't right, and I can just feel in my heart at that moment that something was wrong. So I just started shouting and screaming and carrying on and trying to just create awareness so that everyone that was on board knew that this was happening now, so that we could fix it now or we could get off the boat now. And in yachting, that's very important, your decisions. And when you make a decision, you kind of have to follow through, because if you don't follow through, it's not going to happen the way it should, first of all. And second of all, if you don't follow through with your decision, you start to doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, that's when things can really go wrong. So trusting that initial thought always is best. We have a little saying as a sailor, when is a good time to reef your sails? And the same can be applied to life. And a good idea on where to reef your sails is the first time you think about reefing your sails. So it's just common, you just have to adapt to the situation. And that's what we did. And we started raising the alarm of the yacht, and the skipper came down and he had a look, see what was happening. And while he was coming down from the cockpit at the helm, I was looking around the yacht at all the through-hull fittings and the seacocks to see what is wrong. Where's the water coming from, first of all? Because I knew it was salt water by the rate of the water coming into the vessel. If it was fresh water, it would have been leaking from a water tank. It would have been quite controlled. And I started searching for where this water is coming from. And I open the engine compartment, and I look at the rear of the vessel, which is known as a stern. And where the stern gland was sitting, water was just gushing in there. Like, I can't explain to you how much water. Basically, how I would explain it is if you open that fire hydrant and you try to push your hand in front of that, that's how much water was gushing into the boat. And at that moment, I knew that we were going to have to abandon the ship. And the skipper made the call immediately as he saw what was happening. And I didn't have any emotion or any feelings or any thoughts or any doubt in my mind to doubt what was happening. It was almost as if I was given an instruction and that I had to do that instruction in order to live. And it was as real as that, which is scary to think, because I was 19 years old and I had to make that decision to survive and live, And first move, I went outside. I was in charge of the life raft. The skipper was doing the mayday down below, and Juan was getting all the stuff from the canned foods to some water into some grab bags. And I tossed the life raft overboard, and I tie the life raft tether to a strong point on the vessel. And I go back downstairs to gather the bags and bring them and start just packing. We had 2 waterproof bags with our laptops and just some, personal belongings inside. And we also had an Iridium Go, which was in this waterproof bag. And as I'm coming back upstairs, up the companionway, I put the bags in the cockpits and I'm ready to toss some of the bags into the life raft. And I see the life raft has drifted away from the vessel. The tether pulled out of the life raft. And it was like it was so hectic in that moment because my heart just sank, and I felt like if I didn't try and get this life raft, if the boat sank, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna just lie in the water for hours? We're gonna land. What are we gonna do? We need a life raft to be safe. This is the
Absolutely.
Indian Ocean. There's sharks. So
Why had
I,
the tether come loose?
yeah. So basically, how life rafts are designed is that they have a tether of which is tied to a strong point, and yeah, basically the life raft has the tether which you connect to the strong point on the vessel. And if the vessel sinks, the tether will always pull off because of the pressure, so that your life raft and your vessel don't sink together. So it's always just a safety precaution. I don't know if they are designed exactly to break off at a certain force, or if it's just the rope they use or something like that. I haven't actually researched exactly what happened. So I decide at that moment, I'm going to get enough and I'm going to cut the Genoa sheets on the starboard side, which is really long. It's a long line. And I cut the line from the top of the clew on the bow and I jump overboard. Now I'm in the water and I'm swimming with all of my force to the life raft as quickly as I can to just try and attach ourselves and connect the yacht to the life raft, because without the life raft, we're going to die. And it was just a complete mess up. And I didn't really ask for permission. I feel like a lot of events happened within the duration of the time when we were suffering what was happening. No one really asked to do anything. Everyone just did it as it had to be done. So there was no time for anything. And I'm sitting on the life raft now with no connection to the yacht, and I see the 3 crew members standing on the side of the yacht, and I don't know if they're going to swim to me. I don't have the EPIRB. The EPIRB's on the yachts. I don't have anything. I don't have any way of communicating with them. I don't even have a life jacket. I just have a pair of underpants on.
And
And
the
I have the
line?
underpants here today. And yeah, these pair of underpants is all I had at 19 years old in a life raft in the Indian Ocean. So yeah, pretty intense.
But you had jumped in with a line, right?
Yeah, so I jumped overboard, obviously, with the Genoa sheets in my hand to swim and try and connect the life raft to the yacht. But the line was too short, so obviously, we weren't connected. I was there alone, with no tether or any connection. And the crew members decided to jump ship and swim towards the life raft. And as we got each other in, we made sure everyone was there, and we did a head count. And yeah, the vessel sank. And just sitting in the life raft and just realizing how quickly it had happened. It took 5 minutes for the yacht to sink.
You
So
saw the yacht go, right?
yeah, I saw the top of the Windex, which is at the top of the mast, disappear beneath the waves in 5 minutes. It's pretty crazy to see everything just disappear like that so quickly. And yeah, we were in a life raft, drifting away in the Indian Ocean for a
This
solid
is the exact life raft this is you in a life raft, right? These photos?
Exactly, yes. So I'll get to that in the next few slides, exactly in detail. But this life raft is a 4-man life raft. It's from Viking, a safety equipment company. And yes, this is the required life raft or life-saving equipment for yachties, or anyone sailing on a sailing vessel. And yes, these are photos of me and the crew in the middle of the Indian Ocean, bobbing in a life raft with an EPIRB, hoping for someone to save us. And the first hour was so quick. The second hour was a little bit faster.
How does that EPIRB work? Is it a 2-way communication device or a 1-way communication device?
Exactly that. So while sitting on the life raft for at least 2 hours already, we had kind of already understood that we only had a 1-way signal transmitting. We had nothing receiving. So we had no way of communicating with the outside world. We just had ourselves and an EPIRB that we had prayed and hoped worked. And if I can just commend MRCC and SOLAS and all the rules applied to safety at sea and the equipment that we use, it does work. and it saved my life, and I'm guaranteed it will save anyone's life here today if you were in the same situation, which is reassuring because there's a big ocean out there, and I'm glad that we have the technology that we do to help when we need to.
Can
And
you explain a little bit about how that EPIRB works for those who don't know?
yeah, so basically it's an emergency positioning indicating response beacon, and it indicates a signal at 406 megahertz to satellite, and then that satellite is obviously referred back to MRCC Cape Town radio or any other radios in the world, and also on a VHF, which is a very high frequency radio, on channel 16 with your Mayday calls. It transmits throughout, so the channel is blocked. It's a one-way channel. Everyone knows about it. It's no secret if there's a Mayday being called at sea. So everyone does do what they can to help, and without an EPIRB, life would have been made a lot harder, especially for the global positioning. The EPIRB is a positioning device, I think, every second, if I'm not wrong, and I think it lasts for 48 hours, if I can be corrected. So it's very accurate, and it saved our lives. And yeah, we were in the life raft, sitting in the Indian Ocean, drifting, just wondering why this happened to us. What had I done wrong to be in this position where I'd never want to be in? 2-3 weeks before I'd left on the sailing trip, I was invited to a lunch at the yacht club in Durban, and I demonstrated the operation and function of opening a life raft. And everyone was very hesitant to pull the tether because it's known as bad luck in a sailor's life. You never wish for a sailor to pull a tether of a life raft. It's just one of those little things that someone says. And I did that as a demonstration. And, I didn't know that 3 weeks later I'd be doing it for real, in real life, to save my life. So, yeah, a little bit scary. Everyone was quite emotional sitting in the life raft, and there's so much water around you, but you can't drink it. So much water around you, you can't see anything except wave after wave, and it's very it's scary. It's I can't describe it any other way. It's very emotional. It's an emotional feeling. It's a feeling of losing everything, and just understanding the basics of life today, and just living each day, because every day is a blessing. Every day that we live, we shouldn't take accounted for, because when you're sitting on a life raft or you're at home in quarantine, it will be better days. Things need time, and unfortunately, with the pandemic happening in the world today, the earth needs time, and we need time for vaccines, and it's just a whole bunch of time. And in the end of the day, the more time we think about it logically and just understand exactly why we feel as human beings emotional in different circumstances, we can almost relate our stories with one another, like I'm doing today, to just catch an audience, to catch a feeling, to catch something that is important to one but isn't really important to another one, but kind of still makes an impression on their life. And that's what my story I'm trying to achieve. Yeah, we were sitting in a life raft, and the skipper sees a ship on the horizon, and we all get excited and we start shooting flares. In the life raft, all we had brought with us was life jackets, 4 life jackets, 2 grab bags. 1 grab bag was with canned food and dry food, and we had that's about all we had in the 1 dry bag. And then the other dry bag, we had our flares and all our survival supplies.
How long had you been in the life raft at that point?
Until we had seen the ship.
Yeah.
5 hours. 5 hours. So we sat in the life raft from about 20 to 6, I'd say, in the morning, to about 11:30, until the ship had come in our vicinity where we could see it.
How did you pass those hours?
With a lot of emotion, with trying to understand the situation I was in, trying to find some form of happiness in a previous experience that could enlighten me in the moment. And nothing really shone through more than family, and the people that you love. and the people that you take for granted. Unfortunately, I have to say that, but the everyday people like our parents or our family members are just there, but they really are the only people we have, and having nothing but a passport and a pair of underpants, you kind of understand the meaning of that, and you understand the meaning of love and compassion, and that people aren't that bad, sitting in a life raft waiting to be saved. It almost makes you feel edgy because you kind of hope you're going to be saved, but at the same very time you don't know if you are, because you don't know, you don't have any communication.
For
And
sure.
yeah, so after we had seen the ship, we had fired parachute flares and we had let off a few smoke flares and got the attention from the ship, so they could see and make visual with the life raft, with the life raft in picture here. And yeah, they made an attempt, not one time, not two times, but three attempts, and it was actually quite impressive because the ship couldn't really maneuver. It only had one propeller, so it could
It's
only
a
go forward.
huge oil tanker, right?
Yeah, I think I have a photo in the next slide. I'm going to jump there quickly. There we go.
Yeah.
So that's an oil tanker there. The name is Inti Massini. I think she's an oil and gas tanker, if I can be standard correct. This is the vessel that saved my life, and how the vessel did that was, in this picture they have these lifelines that they were throwing overboard, and basically, if you can just picture a big circle, as us were in the middle of the circle and the ship trying to circle around us, but decreasing the diameter between the surface of water between the ship and us. So each time they would circle, they would get closer to us. And the first time they were 30 meters, quite far, but they were very close. The second time they were much closer, and I kind of had an idea in my brain. I don't know where it comes from, but I mean, I just decided at that moment that I was going to swim up to the ship and I was going to try and grab a lifeline and connect the life raft, because without anything in between us, we don't actually stand any chance of being saved, In the Indian Ocean, it's quite swelly. We had 2.5, 3 meter swells, and that's why the tether pulled off, so they couldn't even launch a life raft or a rib or anything to come and help us besides us climbing up the side of the ship. And it didn't work out. I'm almost getting dragged beneath the ship trying to swim away with this lifeline. And at that moment, I just decided it's not going to work, and that if I didn't get out of the situation, I was going to probably die. And I'm very grateful to have made that decision, because I probably would have died, because the ship was 220 meters long. It was about probably, if not 10 stories high, and it was moving at 1 knot. And I was trying to swim up to it and say hi and grab a line to save my life, and it didn't work. And I got back to the life raft and I apologized to my crew members. I didn't ask them if I could try. I didn't say anything. I just went. And they weren't impressed, but in that situation, they understood my fight for survival. They understood that I was doing everything in my power I could to save us. It was a team effort. It wasn't a solo victory. And on the third time, the ship came around and they were close enough, and we managed to paddle ourselves on board. And yeah, the skipper of Kind of Magic, the yacht that sank, he initiated youngest to oldest steps out of the life raft first and onto the ship.
We can see the ladder, that aluminum ladder and rope on the side of the boat, of the ship, right here in this photo, right?
Yeah, so on the starboard side, which is the right side of the picture, where there's a ladder and then the rope ladder, that's exactly what they used for us to climb up. That's exactly how we climbed up onto the ship. So if you can just picture the ship moving at 1 knot, which is almost, I think, 1.8 kilometers an hour, and trying to grab onto the line and climb up and save yourself. It was quite an emotional, quite an emotional thing. I think the story of, Goliath comes in also to play. It's a scary object. It's huge. It's massive. You don't know how to tackle it. You don't know how to eat it. You don't know what to do. You don't know what situation you're in, and it was something that we managed to use to our advantage, and it never hurt us and saved our lives. And I owe the biggest respect to the company that saved my life and the three other individuals that were on the yacht with me. And here's a photo of us sitting in the mess room. We were welcomed aboard onto the ship with a liter of orange juice and a liter of water. And, we were sitting in the mess room talking about what had happened and just speaking to each other about why it had happened and trying to understand it a little bit better. And awesome experience, awesome people. And yeah, we're on the ship for 2 days. The ship was stopping off in the Comores to fetch anti-piracy guards, and they were going to drop us off there, and then we would have to find our own way home, because they were sailing past Somalia, and they didn't feel safe to take
to get dropped
refugees.
off in the Comores, you had the ship had to get approval from the government, right?
Yeah, so it was quite a big thing. Obviously, the South African government was involved in relation to the Comorian government, and then also the Singaporean oil tankers association that had us. So it was a huge amount of logistics, a huge amount of money spent to save our lives, which I'm grateful for, because the company that saved our lives used the story and the imagery for publicity and to also spread the message of humanity being so kind and saving lives at sea and applying what we learn in all these courses that we go through to get our certifications, that it actually does work in the bigger picture, So SOLAS, safety of lives at sea, I really am appreciated. And yeah, the rule applies.
How did the crew on board treat you? Because it was a huge inconvenience to go out of their way, pick you up. How did they treat you when you got on board?
Yeah, they were amazing. They were really, really amazing. The people were from Mumbai, India. So happy, so friendly, really, really amazing. I have no bad bone in my body ever from the day that my life was saved. Complete strangers turned into friends. I still have contact with a couple of the guys on the ship today, and it was as part of our lives as it was a part of theirs, because they saved us, and that was quite special. They did try their best and they did accomplish such a goal, and I'm very happy that these individuals saved our lives, and I'm very happy that the Indian people are so amazing that they brought back my love for humanity at that point. So yeah, I love spicy food. Also, I'm from Durban, South Africa. And yeah, the chef, I made really good friends with the chef on board, and he gave me my orange overall, which we'll see in a later picture in the slide. And I was running around Moroni for 3 days in an orange overall. I didn't smell good. I didn't have any deodorant. I had no shaver. I had no shoes. I was just bare necessities, passport and an overall. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was beautiful. They did everything they can to help us and met some amazing people along the way. And 3 days later, with some much agreements and tiredness of arguing at embassies and trying to get some information on when we could go home, and finally got the information that the South African embassy wouldn't pay for us to go home. So we ended up asking our parents and family members to help donate some money for us to get home. And yeah, we flew from Comores to Kenya, Nairobi airport to be exact. And it was surreal being saved and sitting on an aeroplane and being offered a drink or beverage and some dinner. And
this is
it was
just
it
a
was
couple
surreal.
days after. I mean, it was about 3-4 days, 5 days after.
Yeah, so we would be saved, and then we were on the ship for 2 days, and then we were on land in the Comores Islands in Moroni for 3 days, and then we were on the plane towards Kenya on our route home. And yeah, it was surreal, sitting in the airport, making friends with all the strangers, and just telling the story that we could tell now, because it was quite a special story, and I felt like it was still a very, very alive in my mind at that point. And made some friends with some journalists, and they posted it all over the internet, and I was front page at home in the
How
newspapers,
did
and
you
it
meet
was
the
quite
journalist?
scary. Sitting in the smoking room in Kenya, and we had a 12-hour layover, and I decided that I was gonna sit there and make friends with some strangers and have a conversation on why I was wearing an orange overall. And in picture, you can see an orange overall with a life jacket. And I have that here today, which is so special. Like I mentioned before, this is the chief cook's overall that he gave me. It's an orange overall, and I walked around in this exact overall for 3 days after being shipwrecked. And the yacht that sank had life jackets. The yacht's name was Kinda Magic, and this is the name print on this life jacket. And everyone I met, and everyone that helped me get home and paid an influence in my life, let alone conversation or just a familiar face, signed their name onto the life jacket, as well as all the crew members that I met on that ship, MT Massini, signed their names on the on the life jacket. So very privileged to have that with me today, and very privileged to share the story.
What did you
It's been
do
a
when
hard
you
story.
landed in Durban?
Yeah, so I landed in Durban, South Africa, after the whole situation that had just happened. We'd done a lot of traveling to get back home, and yeah, the first thing I did was go back to the yacht club and sit and have some lunch in my orange overall and
In your
tell some
orange
stories.
overalls?
Yeah, I wore my orange overall. Yes, I did. I still remember the day because I was sitting there and I was telling a story to a fellow yachtsman, friend of mine, and the chair broke, and I landed on my back on the floor, crashed down off the chair, and I was like, "Really? What next?" You know, like just landed from a foreign country, my yacht sank, and now I'm breaking chairs. So, yeah.
Why did you go to the yacht club?
The yacht club was quite special. It started my passion for teaching, my passion for learning more about sailing, not just only as a sailor or only as a helmsman or only as a tactician or something like that, but rather be involved in the community of sailing as a whole. And I have a group of scouts in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, at the Royal Yachting Associate, at the Royal Natal Yacht Club, and
Mhm.
we had a little L26 by the name of Chang Sin. It's a Levanus 26 or something like that, I think. It's a beautiful little boat. It's a one design monohull, similar to a J27 or something like that. And basically I had a little team, and we used to do little regattas and everything like that. And it was really awesome because they came from an underprivileged background. They didn't even have their own bedrooms to sleep in. You know, it's people that are really in poverty. And in South Africa and in a third world country like I live in today, for me to give back to people who just want to feel the feeling that I felt the first day I went sailing, that drove me to be who I am today, I kind of want to give that feeling to as many people as I can, because it's initiated so much in my life, and it's made a lot of impression, and it's made a lot of good things happen for a lot of good people, and
So
meeting good people is
yeah, so straight after all of this, you land in South Africa, and the first thing you do, you go to the yacht club. How quickly did you get back on a boat? What was that first time like?
Yeah, you know, it took me, the initial time was about 3 months, just sitting at home. I fell into quite a bad depression at the time. You know, I was quite emotional towards why it had happened to me, and why. And it ended up just being
Yeah.
a question that I decided, you know what, I'm done with. I'm going to use everything that I learned that's in my mind to apply it to a certain situation that will develop new ideas, new talents, new individuals into the sport that I love. And it's been a rocky road, you know, it still is. I'm 22 years old. I fail a lot. I really, really fail a lot, but I also learn a lot from what I do. And I improve every single time I fail. And I have a song that I came up with my family and my girlfriend, and 7 = 8, exactly how it's said. And you know, you fall down 7 times and you stand up 8 times, and you keep pushing and you keep fighting. And I want everyone at home in quarantine and in lockdown and anything in life. And if you ever get beat up and get knocked down, just take a deep breath, reach as high as you can as if it's your goal, and do everything you can to get there, because it's the greatest feeling ever. And yeah, just to say that, some pictures on the slide of some awesome memories with some awesome people. And this is in Montenegro in the top right.
Mhm.
It's from Croatia in the above, in Dublin Island bottom right, sailing in South Africa in the top left. Just important people and amazing people, and an amazing company such as Quarterdeck. I've worked for Quarterdeck now for 2 years, and they were the initial startup of me trying to accomplish my goal of being a professional sailor this time, rather than just being a greenhorn jumping on boats as a deckhand and ending up in a life raft in the Indian Ocean. I would like to understand why I got there, and now, you know, being the sailor I am today, I understand fully on how not to do things and how to do things and in between. So yeah.
And you're giving that back to the community through teaching. What I hear from you and from this story, and why it's so powerful, is that you went through the absolute worst case scenario, and yet you allowed this gratitude, this connection with strangers, and this desire to give back what you learned to make it help others. You let those feelings drive you forward and bring you back to the water. What's your favorite thing about sailing?
Not being able to sleep. um, yeah, I mean, I'm an offshore sailor. We don't sleep a lot. So I would have to say my favorite thing would be about sailing would be my hatred towards not being able to sleep. Um, it's a love-hate relationship, but it's a funny one, and that's how I feel. Unfortunately, I've sailed 7,000 nautical miles, if not more, since last year September. So I've done a lot of sailing. I've spent a lot of days on yachts, and being in quarantine in South Africa, I thought that it would be awesome to be on land again, because I've spent so much time on the water. But it's not. I want to be back. I want to go back. I want to sail, you know. And I'm sure we all feel that way about everything that we love doing, because we are all in the same situation as citizens of the world. You know, we're facing a greater problem than we know, but humanity and being together go hand in hand. And I think we can get through this together, and we should just share some stories and chat about some things, because as individuals we all have stories, but not all of us tell them, not all of us can explain them. So let's do this, let's chat together, let's try to find the next person to share their story. And I'm still privileged and driven to be able to have this opportunity and grow as an individual each day that I'm on this earth, with enlightenment on sailing and providing hopefully a better world in the future. And I can at least try my best. So yeah.
Some really great words. I have another question for you, but before I do, I'd like to remind everyone in the audience, if you have a question, please type it in the chat box. One of my last questions for you, Dylan, is you've seen everything. We can say without a doubt that you are a very experienced sailor at the moment. So who would you say sailing is for? Who should get into it?
Well, I wouldn't call myself an experienced sailor, because every time I go out on the water, I'm always learning something new. It never stops, unfortunately. You know, you learn one thing and it changes daily. But I have a lot of practice, I would say. I wouldn't say I'm experienced, but I have a lot of practice. Um, yeah, anyone, you know, every single individual in this world today should at least once in their lifetime feel what it's like to be powered by the wind. And that's what sailing is. Sailing isn't where it can take you. Sailing isn't the bigger boats you can sail on. Sailing isn't the people. Sailing isn't the amount of flags. Sailing is that freedom of being propelled by the wind. And everyone from any race, any color, disability, mentally challenged, education, MBA degree, to a person who just dropped out of high school. It depends on anyone. It depends on the society as a whole. Anyone can sail. And that's also why I have such a passion for sharing my story, is because, you know, I have witnessed people that cannot walk sail. I have witnessed a dog sail. I have witnessed a real life dog sail a boat. I promise, I've seen it. I've seen old ladies. I've seen anyone of any age sail a boat, and it's beautiful because it's an art. Sailing is the art of going nowhere slow, nowhere quickly, like I said in the beginning of the webinar. But it's the best way to get there. That's how I feel.
That's perfect. Okay, so I have one question from the audience, and then we'll wrap it up. When you were in the life raft, did you guys have expectations of being found? What were you thinking? Were you planning for days? Did you think about that at all, or you weren't yet able to approach that subject?
Yeah, so if I can just think about it mentally as a yachtsman, if you're making a call on channel 16 on a very high frequency radio, the call is a distress. It's the nature of the call will always be a distress. It's a distress channel. The EPIRB is only and always used in distress. The only time that the words Mayday are said is if you are in great imminent danger, and we were in that. And with the amount of time we had, I'm forever grateful we received a response from our Mayday on the VHF. So we knew, and we kind of had some assurance in the back of our minds that someone heard us call Mayday. That was all I had. That was all we had, and that was all we knew until we saw the ship on the horizon on the way to fetch us. And yeah, that's the answer.
Great. Dylan, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know it's not an easy story to share, but it is one that is very profound. So thank you very much for taking that time and energy to join us here today. I hope that you'll be able to join us in person sometime in the future. And with that, I will wrap up today's call. I hope that everyone stays safe, and we'll get back out on the water as quickly as we can. With that, have a good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.